Good afternoon, friends, and welcome to this teleconferencing session. My name is Kamal Yadav. We'll have two sessions this afternoon. The one in which we are right now, that's from 2:30 to 3:15, and another session which will be after a 15 minutes break, that is from 3:30 to 4:15. These two sessions will be devoted to the marketing management stream of the MBA program. I'll be specifically talking about the course MS65 Marketing of Services. But before going to the specific details of the course, I'd like to discuss certain general details with you. Since this is the beginning of the semester, a new cycle has started from January. I'd like to share with you some of the new developments in the management program and something about the project work also, which is of concern to all the students who enroll for MBA program. First, there is a slight change in the manner in which the MBA program is being delivered from January 2007 cycle. Just to recapitulate, the MBA program consists of different modules, that's the PGDIM, the DIM, and then specialization diplomas, and then the integrative module. In all, more than 50 courses are on offer. Till December 2006, that's the last semester, all 50 plus courses were on offer in both the semesters. Now what we have done is we have gone in for a little change in the way this program is being delivered. What we have done is that few courses which are core, that's the compulsory courses, will be on offer in both the semesters, but few courses which are optional would not be available in both the semester but are rather divided. Few courses, a bunch of courses in the first semester and a bunch of courses in the second semester. Now what has been the philosophy behind this change? As you are aware, the management program, in case you are going in for a MBA, then you have specific 11 compulsory courses, that is MS 1 to 11. Then you have to select a particular specialization stream. Right now we have 4 streams on offer: HRM, Finance, Operations, and Marketing. In the selected stream you have to complete 5 courses out of a given list of courses. Right now the number of courses on offer in HRM is 8, in Finance it is 6, in Operations it is 8, and in Marketing 9. So whichever stream you select, for example you have selected Marketing stream, that means you have to do 5 courses in the Marketing stream from the 9 courses which are available. Similarly, one who opts for Operations Management has to select 5 of the given 8, in Finance one has to select 5 of the given 6, and so on. That means right now we have 31 specialization level courses on offer. Once a student does PGDIM plus the specialization diploma, the additional requirement is of integrative module, in which there are 2 compulsory courses, MS 91 and 95, 1 compulsory project work, that is MS 100, which is equivalent to 2 courses, and then a student has to elect one of the courses out of the 5 available, that is MS 92, 93, 94, 96, 97. That means a student who is required to do MBA has to necessarily do 11 courses MS 1 to 11, 2 compulsory courses into integrative module MS 91 and 95, which makes it 13, and the project work, which makes it 14. So 14 courses are compulsory. Now these 14 courses will be on offer in both the semesters. Now out of the remaining 31 specialization level courses plus 5 courses in the integrative module, that is 36 courses, a student would be required to take 5 in the specialization stream and 1 in the integrative. That's out of these 36 courses, student is required to take only 6 courses. So what we have done is, while these 14 courses would be on offer in both the semesters, out of the remaining 36, of which a student has to opt for 6, we have split them into 2. 18 courses in January to June cycle, and remaining 18 courses in July to December cycle. Now there is no implication as far as the minimum time schedule required to complete the MBA, that remains the same. There will be no implication. Only thing is that you have to plan a little bit in advance, that which courses in specialization you would be taking in first semester depending on your choice, and which courses in specialization you would be taking in second semester depending on the available choice. Now coming specific to the marketing courses, as I told, there are 9 courses in the marketing stream. There is a uniformity in coding. All courses starting with the digit 6 are marketing courses. The basic course MS6, Marketing for Managers, and then in specialization we have MS61, which is Consumer Behavior, MS62, which is sales management, MS63, product management, 64 is international marketing, 65 is marketing of services, on which we will be discussing in details subsequently. Then MS66 is marketing research, MS68 is advertising and communication management, MS611 is rural marketing, and 612, the latest entrant in the marketing bouquet, is the retail management course. So out of these 9 marketing courses, 5 would be on offer in January to June cycle, and 4 would be on offer in July to December cycle. So MS61 to MS65 are on offer in the January cycle, that's the current one, and remaining 4 courses, which means MS66, 68, 611 and 612, they will be available in the July to December cycle. So you have to plan in advance, in case, depending on your choice, which 5 courses you want. You have to be specific so that the particular course in which you are interested is available in that particular semester. As far as end term exams are concerned, the end term exams will be held for all the courses. That means all 50 courses, there would be end term exam in June as well as December. Now again, the practical implication, for example, you have registered for a MS65 course in the January cycle, that means the current cycle. You are registered for MS65 and you have submitted your assignment, but somehow you could not appear in the end term exams in June. In that case, there is no problem. While your assignment grade which you have received will remain valid, and in case you can find time to prepare for the course later on, or in case you are not able to because of some commitment in June, you could not appear in the end term exam, you can still appear in December end term exam. Of course, the procedural requirements have to be done. You have to fill up the examination form for this December term exam. Another change which we have made in the management program, and which is in line with the changes made in the other programs in the university also, that from January cycle, we will be having 1 assignment in each course. Before that, the students who were earlier with the program would be knowing that there were 3 assignments, out of which best 2 were counted. But from January cycle onwards, for each course we will be having 1 assignment, and that is a compulsory assignment, and the weightage would remain the same. That means the assignment would have a weightage of 30%, which is the continuous evaluation, and the term and exam would have a weightage of 70%, which is what was being done earlier also. That means primarily the changes are 2. Just to repeat, to make myself more clear, and so that you can also do your planning accordingly. Number 1, the elective courses have been split into 2 bouquets. Out of 36 courses, 18 courses available in January cycle and remaining 18 courses available in July cycle. That's the one change. That means counseling sessions would be held only for those 18 courses. Apart from core courses, all core courses, there will be counseling in both the semesters, but specialization level courses and the electives in the integrative module, counseling would be held for 50% of the courses in January cycle and remaining 50% in the July cycle. Similarly, assignments would be available for those 50% in the January cycle and remaining 1 in the July cycle. So as and when you register for a course, please complete your assignments. End term exams would be held in both June and December. In case you miss out on one, you can go in for the second. And the validity of registration remains the same as it was earlier. That's for 4 semesters. So once you register for a course, you can complete it in 4 semesters. So whether you complete it in this June or December or next June or next December, you don't have to pay anything else. Only thing is you have to apply through the examination form as to in which particular end term exam you are going to appear. So that was the one change, and second change, as I mentioned, was regarding the assignments. From now onward, 1 assignment per course. Now I come to the specific course which I would be discussing. Out of the 5 courses which are available in the first semester, that is MS 61, 62, 63, 64 and 65, I would be taking up the course MS 65 today. I'll give you some details about the course in the beginning, and then I'll come to a few specific topics as well. But before we go into the details, I'll make a request to all of you, those who are present at the centers. Since this medium basically is meant to be interactive, it's not a lecturing medium. This is not meant to be a lecturing session. It's more, has to be interactive session. So I would request those who are present at the centers, you can ask your question as and when you want. I have not put up any specific structure to this particular session or even to the next session, that only this much would be lecturing and then the question answer session. No. As and when you want, go ahead with your questions. And even if you don't have any questions, my request would be, please give a call so that we know how many students, how many participants are present at a particular center. So I look forward to receiving your calls, hopefully with questions, and even if there are no questions, still I'll request you to at least make one call indicating the number of participants at a particular center. This would help us in further developing this particular medium and how to go about in the subsequent sessions. Now coming to the course MS65, that is marketing of services. Now what are services? That's the first basic question. I won't go into any definitions. Definitions won't serve any specific purpose. In simple words, if you ask me to say what is a service, I'll say services are something which cannot be dropped on your foot. That's a service. So essentially, how you define a service is not that important, but from a marketeer's point of view, what is more important is how are services different from physical goods, from tangible goods. Why do we have a separate course on marketing of services? What is the need? How are services different from goods? What are the implications of those differences? And how should the marketeers address to those differences? What are the challenges which services pose to marketeers? Those are the issues. Now, how services are different? Before going into those details, those who have registered for MS65 course, they would be knowing there are 5 blocks in the course. First block gives the general introduction about the course, about service sector, the economy, the role of services in economy, how services are different from goods, how consumer behavior is different in case of services. Second block talks about the marketing mix for services. The third block talks about strategic issues in services marketing, on which I will be devoting substantial time today. And the last 2 blocks talk about sectoral applications in service sector. We talk of financial services, hospitality services, educational services, and so on. Now try to think of your daily routine. What do you do in your daily lives and how services impact our daily lives? Think in terms of your daily routine right from the time you get up. Maybe you listen to radio or you see news on television. We talk of entertainment or media services. You move out of your house, maybe you had a taxi, an auto, you use public transport, you are making use of services. Banks, hospitals, maybe are now part of our daily lives. Again, services. You are a part of IGNOU fraternity. That means making use of educational services. Those of you who have families, children, your children might be going to schools. Educational services. These are services which you use on a regular basis. Then there might be services which you use occasionally. You might be making use of income tax consultants. You might be making use for some coaching services for your children, for entrance exams to engineering colleges or medical colleges. Or maybe you are making use of educational consultants for deciding on the careers of your children. Again, services. You may be going out with your families for vacations. You may be going to movie halls on the weekends. At times you are going out to restaurants to have food. All services. Always try to think in terms of yourself as a consumer for service, and then try to think how services are different from the way you buy a television or a refrigerator, which are tangible goods. Now increasingly services are become more and more important to economies of the nation. Right now in India also, almost 3/5 of our economy is made up of services. The contribution of service sector to GDP in India is nearing almost 60%. Though traditionally we think we are agriculture dominated society, fine, that's true. That's true today also. In terms of number of people who are involved, who are associated with the agriculture sector, still is more. But the quantum of business, the volume in money terms is almost 60% when we talk of role of services in GDP in India's economy. And as the economies grow, from agriculture based to manufacturing based to advanced economies, the role of services keep on increasing. For example, in the United States, services contribute almost 80% of the GDP. Take all advanced nations like say UK or Germany or France or Italy or Japan. The role of service sector or the contribution of service sector to the GDP ranges from 60 to 75%. So that highlights the role of services in any economy. But again, I come back to the basic question. How are services different from goods, and why we require a separate course on services? Now, services are different from goods in 4 basic ways. Number 1, services are intangible. Unlike physical goods, you can't touch services. You can't touch health services, educational services. When you want to buy a television, you can go, switch it on, see the reception, the colors, the sound, the looks of the television set. But can you do the same with transport services or health services or educational services? No. So services are essentially intangible. Secondly, services are inseparable. That means the provider and receiver have to be at the same place. While in case of manufactured goods, the refrigerators might be manufactured at one place, stored at different place, sold at the third place. But services are produced, delivered and consumed in most of the services at the same place. The third difference with services is the services are heterogeneous. That means the quality of services may differ from day to day, from provider to provider. The same person may deliver a different service today and a different service tomorrow. And finally and importantly, services are perishable. Services cannot be stored, which is a very important part. Unlike physical goods. For example, in India, say, I'll take an example from Indian context. Almost 40% of the sales for consumer durables like televisions, refrigerators, microwave ovens, washing machines, they take place in the festive seasons. Festive season means season around September, October, November, that season. Dussehra, Diwali and those festivals are there. That doesn't mean that you can't produce televisions and refrigerators in February, March or April and keep them. You can do that. When the demand is lean, your machines may be still working to full capacity. You may be storing them, and when there is a peak demand, you are able to cater to the demand. But can you do that for services? An aircraft which takes off with 40% empty seats, that capacity is lost forever. You cannot use that 40% seats during the peak period. A movie theater which has just 50% audience and 50% empty seats, those 50% seats cannot be used when there is a peak rush. A restaurant which doesn't have rush on weekdays cannot take that capacity to weekends when there is more rush. That means there are specific implications for marketeers. And because of these characteristics and because of these implications, what marketeers have said, what academicians and practitioners have said, that the traditional 4 Ps, the product, price, place and promotion, are not good enough for services, but we have to have extended marketing mix wherein 3 more marketing mix elements, that is people, processes and physical evidence are required. That means in case of marketing of services, we require a 7P marketing mix, which is addition to the traditional 4P marketing mix. So the block 2 of the course specifically discuss these 7 Ps of marketing mix elements. So additional 3 Ps, I'll repeat, are people, and when I say people, it means the people who are delivering the service as well as people who are receiving the service. Then the processes, that's how the service is delivered. And finally the physical evidence, the physical ambience where services are delivered, or any physical material associated with the service. For example, if you take yourself as service receiver for IGNOU management course, the study material which you receive is a physical evidence. The diploma or degree certificate you receive is a physical evidence. Your identity card, your hall ticket, all are physical evidences associated with educational services. Similarly, the center in which you go, what sort of ambience is there? What sort of seating arrangements are there? They are all physical evidences. Now, having appreciated how services are different from goods based on 4 characteristics of intangibility, inseparability, heterogeneity and perishability, and that we require a 7P marketing mix model instead of conventional 4P, now I move over to some strategic issues in services marketing, which are the topics covered in block 3 of MS65 course. Now coming to the strategic issues in services marketing, as I said, one of the major issues is that services are perishable. You cannot store them. But the demand is not constant. Demand keeps on changing. So what do we do? In fact, in one of the surveys done long time back, the biggest problem which the services marketers said they are facing is fluctuation in demand. How to manage demand, that's the biggest challenge for services marketers. So I'll start my discussion on strategic issue with a discussion on managing demand and capacity. Now when we say managing demand, if you see your slides, the slide on the monitor, you will see a slide shortly on the monitor which talks about different demand scenarios. The demand curve which is shown shows that there are different peaks and valleys in demand. This is just a typical hypothetical case. There could be a peak demand and a reduction in demand, there could be valleys in the demand, so there could be different scenarios. Now how do we go about it? That means, similarly on the y-axis we talk about a maximum capacity and a optimum capacity. Now I like to devote half a minute on that also. There is a difference between the maximum capacity and optimum capacity. Maximum capacity is the one which you can operate, but maybe the quality or your efficiency or your effectiveness reduces at that. While optimum capacity is the ideal capacity. I'll go by examples. That's the beauty in marketing courses. I say always go by examples. Try to think for examples and ask for examples. Now in this particular curve, there is a maximum capacity, then we talk of optimum capacity, and then as per the demand, there are different situations. Now one situation is the peak demand, which is more than the optimum capacity. That means in such a scenario what you have to do is the business is lost. You have to refuse your customers. Second scenario is the demand matches with the optimum capacity. Ideal situation. But in practical world nothing ideal exists. So practically you won't find such a situation very frequently. The third case is demand is less than the maximum capacity but more than the optimum capacity. That means you can meet the demand, but maybe somewhere the quality of the services may be affected, which again may send bad signals. And the fourth situation is the demand is less than the optimum capacity. That means wasted resources. So the situation can be anything: demand more than the maximum capacity, demand less than the maximum capacity but more than optimum capacity, affecting the service quality. Ideal situation, demand matching the optimum capacity, and the fourth one, the demand is less than the optimum capacity, which means you are wasting your resources. So what do you do? How do you manage your demand with the capacity? That means we have two sets of things. One is demand, one is capacity. A match of the two has to take place. That means something either can be done with demand or something can be done with the capacity, or a combination of two. So what are the strategies which are available to marketeers to match demand and capacity? The first situation, when we are talking of when there is demand is on the higher side and supply is less, then what do you do? As I said, either you can do something with the demand or something with the capacity. In this particular slide, I have talked of certain strategies which we can do to manage the demand side when the demand is high. Some of these strategies available are that you educate customers to avoid usage during peak periods. This can be done through advertisement. This can be done through some communication which are placed at the service provider premises. For example, again a hypothetical case, maybe you visit a bank branch and the peak hours are something around say 10:30 to 11:30, at which point maybe for withdrawing cash, instead of normal 5 to 7 minutes, it may take 12 to 15 minutes. Similarly, other activities may require more time. So a banker may put a notice which could either be sent through emails to the customers or even on the bank premises, that these are the normal standards which you can expect from the bank, but since these are the peak hours, it may take a slightly more time to provide you the excellent services which we are providing, so that customers either could switch the time on which they come to the bank, or in case still they want to come at that time, they'll come prepared thinking that, okay, at this particular time, we'll have to have a little bit lesser quality of service as compared to the other times. Second strategy could be you offer incentives for usage during non-peak period. Again, a lot of examples. In restaurants, you have happy hours. If you visit between, say, 4 to 7, price discounts. A lot of liquor bars, they also have happy hours. A particular time before 9 o'clock, discounts. Even movie theaters, there are different pricing for morning shows as compared to the normal other day shows. So in order to encourage customers to come at the non-peak hour, you offer incentives in terms of monetary incentive by reducing the prices. Other strategies include that when the demand is more, you charge full price, no discounting, or another strategy is which marketeers would be making use of as the last resort, that you take care of the regular customers first. And maybe the remaining customers will not get your full attention, a scenario which marketeers will not like to have, but if unavoidable, take care of your regular customers first. That could be one of the strategies. Secondly, when demand is high, can you do something with your capacities? The next slide suggests you some strategies as to what you can do with the capacity when demand is high. Some of the strategies could be you can hire part-time employees when demand is more. You can keep employees over time, pay them more, and generally if you keep employees over time, the monetary rates which are given are at a higher rate than the normal rates. Or you cross-train your employees. That's one area as services marketeers you should take a specific note of. Nowadays we talk more and more of cross-training of employees. It's not that one particular person is doing one job and his job is done, maybe he's sitting idle. No. If a person is doing one job and on that particular job it's not that much of a demand, but on another job more demand is there, person is cross-trained to help the other one to tackle that particular surge in demand. So you are in a capacity to help in number of activities rather than focusing on one only. So cross-training of employees has become one of the major issues in services marketing nowadays. And lastly, what you can do is when demand is more, you can outsource people, you can rent facilities, you can rent equipments so that you can cater to higher demand. So far we have talked about the situation when demand is high and you can do something either with demand or something with the capacity. Second scenario, when the demand is low, then what do you do? Typically in entertainment sectors like restaurants or say movie theaters, there is a definite difference between demand on weekdays versus weekends. Similarly, amusement parks, which are patronized by children and families, there again is a pattern, weekdays versus weekends, or vacations versus the normal school working days, or even examination days versus the other days. During examination time, the demand in amusement parks would definitely be very low, whereas in summer vacations, demand would be higher. So when the demand is low, what do you do? So again, there are different strategies. Either you can do something with the demand or you can do something with the capacities. Now what are the various strategies available when the demand is low? First, the slide which you will be seeing now, there's something to do with the demand. How can you manage demand? One way is you modify your service offering. For example, a management institute. During May, June, there are vacations, demand is less. There are no students. What do? Maybe you hold more of executive development programs, a different service offering, so that your capacities, your teachers, you are paying salaries to your teachers, your infrastructure is there, your staff is there, you have to pay salaries to them, but there are no students. So you can have different sort of a service offering, different package, executive development programs. You can offer discounts, sales promotion schemes, as an example which I had given earlier. You can have a different tickets for weekdays in an amusement park and different rate of ticket for weekends when demand is more. You can modify hours of operations. In case the customer is not willing to come at a particular time, you modify your hours. Now we regularly see number of banks going in for 8 to 8 banking rather than just the traditional one 10 to 2. So that's also possible. Or bring service to the customers. If customer is not coming to the service factory, if I can say that, service factory, the word I can use, the service factory comes to the customer. Just a few days back I received a SMS that you can learn computers at your home. There are providers for that. If you cannot go to the institute to learn computers, the service provider is ready to come to your homes to teach you. That's one way of dealing with slack demand. And the last strategy regarding managing demand is, when the demand is low, is related to capacity. What can you do? When the demand is low, you have a fixed capacity, you can schedule training of employees, because employee training is a very critical issue in services marketing. Because employees come in touch with customers. And a special term has been devised for that particular thing, that is the moment of truth. That's when provider and receiver interact. Those are the moments of truth. And a customer judges the quality of service through those moments of truth. And if you have to have good moments of truth, then the employees have to be trained. You can do your maintenance repairs during this low demand period. You can carry out your renovations. You can schedule employee vacations. The example which I had given earlier of a management institute. One possible way is, okay, the teachers and staff will get vacations during May, June, when there is no demand. Or you can take on subcontract work. You can do work for someone else. That's another way of managing demand. So we have talked about different strategies for managing demand, for mixing, having a proper mix of demand and capacity. The thing is, either you can do something with the demand or capacity or both. If you see in terms of marketing piece, it's essentially playing around with the traditional 4 Ps. Either you do something with the product, you do something with the pricing to manage demand, you do something with the promotions so that you have a mix of peak and valleys, or you do something with the distribution. So all these strategies which I had mentioned to manage demand and capacity have something to do with these 4 Ps. So the problem of managing demand and capacity, try to think in terms of managing these 4 Ps. Now another issue related to managing demand in case of services, which is a very, very important issue, and especially right now, if I can name 2 sectors which are using this particular thing to a great extent. Of course, there are a number of other service sectors which are using, but hospitality and airlines, the transportation sector, they are using this to a great extent, and the term is yield management, related to managing demand and capacity. Now, what is yield management? Very critical issue and important for marketeers as well as all the departments. Rather, yield management is an issue which has to tackle by the corporate, the top management. Now, what is yield? Yield is actual revenue divided by potential revenue, as you see on your slides. A simple expression. But again, as I said, we'll go by examples. Whatever I talk today, nothing would be just pure theory. We will be going ahead with examples only. And you also, whenever you are going through any management course, and especially the marketing courses, go by practical examples. Try to analyze those examples. Try to think why such and such is taking place. That's the beauty of the professional courses. Try to relate it with the practical world. Just merely reading the theoretical thing would not suffice. Now, actual revenue upon potential revenue. Let's take an example of, say, hotels. I'll go by a hypothetical example, taking simple figures. Say, for example, there is a hotel which has 100 rooms, and each room, the tariff is 1,000 rupees per night. So that means the potential revenue would be 1,000 rupees into 100 rooms. That makes it 100,000 rupees per day. 1 lakh, which makes, to say, 30 lakhs in a month. But at 1,000 rupees, you are not getting full occupancy. At 1,000 rupees, the booking is only for 50 rooms and not for 100 rooms. That means actual revenue is 50 into 1,000, that is 50,000. So while the potential revenue is 1 lakh, actual revenue is only 50,000, which makes your yield at 50%. That means your hotel has got a yield of 50%. Now what a smart marketer can do is, okay, I can get 50 customers per day at 1000 rupees, but remaining 50 or even slabs in that, I can book another 25 rooms at 750 rupees and another 25 rooms at 500 rupees. Now take another hypothetical example. So, okay, 50 rupees at 1000 rupees per day, 50 rooms, sorry, and another 50 rooms at only 500 rupees per day. If that is the scenario, that means what you are getting is 50 into 1000 rupees, 50,000 from full tariffs and another 25,000 from the discounted rooms. That means now you are getting 75,000 rupees per day, whereas potential revenue is 1 lakh, making your yield 75%. So from 50%, if you stick to one price theory that okay, you will give only 1000 rupees, your yield is 50%, but making it flexible gives you a yield of 75%. As customer, you must be seeing daily that the airline industry, again a revolution is taking place. If you book your ticket today, for example, from Delhi to Bangalore, maybe you get it for 2,500. Tomorrow it becomes 3,100. 3 days down the line for the same date, it becomes 4,500. It may be then 5,700, 8,000, 10,000, a complete slab. Nothing like just say 1 or 2 or 3 prices. There could be 10 different slabs, whereas services are the same. There may be a scenario that in the flight, the person sitting left to me has paid 5,000 rupees for going to Bangalore from Delhi. I paid 2,500 rupees. Person next to me has paid 7,500 rupees. All three will get the same snacks in case it's not a no-frill airlines. All three will get the same service, same baggage handling, same safety, same airline, same seats, but different pricing. That is yield management. That means you are trying to have the right price at the right time for the right customer. There are of course managerial challenges also. It cannot be done indiscriminately, which may result into customers having a sense of feeling cheated. Okay, I got it for this much, this person has got it for this much, this company is cheating me. So you have to have strategies wherein on the one hand you can have variable pricing, at the same time the customer also doesn't feel alienated. For example, in airlines, if you book early, you get a discounted ticket. If you book late, a higher price ticket, fair enough, customer knows that, no problem in that. In hotels, for example, a business hotel, weekdays maybe a different tariff, weekends when executives will not like to stay at the hotels because offices are closed, they may like to go back to their places, there is less occupancy, you can have a reduced tariff. It's possible. So what are the scenarios, what are the appropriate situations in which yield management is effective? Those situations are when you have relatively fixed capacity, a hotel 100 rooms, a airline 50 aircrafts. You have a fixed capacity. Overnight, you cannot make that 90 or 110. You cannot have 10 aircraft less or 20 aircraft more overnight. So you have a relatively fixed capacity. You have the ability to segment markets, which means there are different sets of customers who are differently price sensitive. If all customers are equal, yield management doesn't mean anything. Continue with your example of airlines. There are customers who are willing to travel only at 2,500. On the other hand, there are customers who are willing to travel, the business customers, at any price, since they have to be there for a meeting, so whatever price they will travel. And in between there could be other categories also. So there are different segments of customers to whom you can cater. The product, the inventory is perishable. As I said, an aircraft which flies with 50% seats unoccupied, that 50% capacity is lost forever. Product can be sold in advance. There is a fluctuating demand, and when there is a low marginal sales cost as compared to high marginal capacity change costs. In case of hotels or airlines, changing capacity would require a lot of money. But marginal sales, instead of 80 passengers, 81 passengers are flying in an aircraft. What difference does it make to the airline? If it is a full service airline, maybe spending some 100, 150 rupees on snacks, some amount on customer handling, and that's it. In no-frill airlines, only the amount required for customer handling, little bit, say, that's all. Otherwise, everything for the additional customer would be, instead of 80, there 81, the 81st customer will basically provide you profits. So the incremental, the marginal cost for that particular sales is very low. So these are the situations in which yield management works, and these are the situations which are typical to services. These characteristics like relatively fixed capacity, perishable inventory, product can be sold in advance, fluctuating demand, are primarily related to services sector. Now what are the managerial implications? Yield management may sound to be very attractive, but as I said, you have to face challenges also. It's not indiscriminate pricing. It's not a sort of bargaining that whatever you can extract from a customer, just go ahead like that. That would result in customer alienation. So how do you go about it? Yield management, you have to be particular that yield management, if not done properly, can result into loss of competitive focus. Just to have a higher yield, you cannot attract any sort of customer which comes to you. A business hotel, just to have a better occupancy on weekends, cannot just ask anyone to just come and have a stay at the hotels. They have to, of course, modify the products, but still target it to a particular segment. What they can do is, on weekends, lower price packages, again addressed to business executives with families. On weekends, executives can come with families at a lower tariff. So if your positioning, the positioning of the hotel is a business hotel, then please don't do that just to have a better yield, going for any sort of customers who are available for weekends, or you are holding marriage parties on weekends in the hotels. No. If the positioning is business hotel, that positioning should not be diluted. Or a full service airline, just to have more customers, should not focus just on the lower end with offering no frills. Okay, these customers we are having, but we won't provide them snacks, we won't provide them such XYZ services, but still we would like to have them. No. Just do not take whichever customer is available just to have a better yield. So your basic competitive focus has to remain in place. Your basic positioning cannot be diluted. You have to think in terms of customer alienation. Customers should not get alienated. An effective yield management would require employee training. And there is another issue of organization of yield management function, where the yield management, whether marketing has to do that or someone else has to do that. Important point is, it's not the function of just one department. Marketing, operations, everyone has to contribute to this, and for that you have to have top management commitment. Unless the top management is committed to this particular philosophy, you can't go in for yield management. Now, yield management would help you in having a better demand capacity management. I'll stop at this point of time. When we come to the second session, we'll talk more about managing demand and capacity in terms of what sort of weightings, line strategies you're going to have, because whatever strategies you may have, still there would be some sort of a mismatch between demand and capacity. So we'll talk about weighting line strategies, and we'll also discuss issues related to service quality. So in this particular session, we have talked about how services are different from tangible goods. What are the characteristics of services which make them different from goods? What are the marketing implications? And because of these implications, the traditional 4P marketing mix is not enough. We require extended marketing mix, that is 7P, and additional 3 elements we had talked were process, people, and physical evidence. And then we came to the strategic issues in services marketing, in which the most important one, I said, was the biggest challenge for services marketeers was managing fluctuating demand. How do you manage fluctuating demand? And wherein we talked about strategies, wherein we said either you can do something with the demand or you do something with the capacity to have a proper match of demand and capacity in different situations, which could be demand exceeding maximum capacity, demand exceeding optimum capacity, or demand matching optimum capacity and demand less than the capacity. So I'll stop at this point of time, and in the next session we'll continue with the weighting line strategies and service quality. So we'll meet again in 15 minutes time at 3:30, and as I mentioned earlier, I look forward to receiving your phone calls. Even if you don't have questions, please go in and just mention that how many participants are present. So thank you once again, and see you in the next session at 3:30.